Hi everyone. This is what happened to me when I got government housing part 93. In the last video, I was telling you that I had to take out a loan to take my daughter to the movies, which was pretty humiliating, but it was the truth. And I wanted you all to know the truth, but I was also in debt in other ways. For example, I had to pawn my jewelry to pay for day-to-day expenses because my income was so low. And I had been burdened with the expenses of going to court and all the other things that I've told you about throughout this series. I was in a debt trap and I knew it, but I couldn't address that problem because I had so many other problems dumped on me and because it made me feel sick to think about my situation. I think my way of dealing with it was just to double down and work harder and focus on my compensation hearing, which was in the future. Dealing with the present was not something that I could do. I hated pawning my jewelry, but I loved it. I loved the fact that I owned jewelry that I was able to pawn, because if I didn't, I'd have no food and I would be wearing dirty clothes. I loved the fact that I could walk into a pawn shop and walk out with cash. And I felt so good and so secure about it for about an hour afterwards. But after just an hour, the money was already spent. I would go straight to the supermarket or straight to the laundrette, and I would think that everything was okay for a while. And I would feel good because I thought I was making it through to my compensation hearing, where I would get compensation for everything that happened to me, and I'd be okay, and we would be back to normal and life would go on. But of course that didn't happen. But we still have to get to the final court hearing, which is coming up soon. On the 14th of the 1st, 2018, I printed some photos of the washing machine and dryer incident because I was still thinking about making an application for compensation to VCAT. But I couldn't afford to print all the forms that I needed, so my application was delayed. On the 20th of the 1st, 2018, I went to Cash Converters and sold one of my gold rings, and they paid me $25. This paid for my food for the day, but I was still unable to complete my application for compensation for the washing machine and dryer. Then on the 24th of the 1st, 2018, I sold a valuable watch that I owned to Cash Converters and they paid me $60 for that watch. I used this money to pay for all the printing and the photocopying that I needed to do for my application for compensation for the washing machine and dryer. So you can see that I lost assets through criminal property damage. Then I had to sell my own personal items to pay for an application for compensation for this damage. This is something that I wanted to highlight because this was the reality of how I was being stripped of my personal assets and of my dignity. I was forced to do things that I didn't want to do because I chose to fight for justice, and it felt like I was being punished for that. My standard of living was being lowered too. I owned nice clothes, and when I needed to buy new clothes, I replaced them with cheap second-hand clothes because that was all that I could afford. When my washing machine was damaged, I started to go to the laundrette to use a public laundry. When I couldn't afford to go out, I stayed home. When I needed to make an application for compensation, I sold my jewelry to pay for the administrative costs involved in the application, and so on, and so on, and so on. The follow-on effects of what happened to me were far-reaching and seemed to be cumulative. Still on the 24th of the 1st, 2018, at around 7:20 p.m., the residents next door started up with their looking for their cat in our backyard thing, and I was sick of it. But I couldn't do anything because I knew if I said anything to them, they would call the cops on me, even though they were doing the harassment and they were being a nuisance to me. I knew that I would be the one that would get the blame for any altercation. So these people were looking over our fence and calling their cat. And when I looked out my daughter's window, I could actually see one of them, and it made me feel sick. It was so invasive and so disturbing that I could actually see that person while standing inside my own home. And it was like when I opened the blind in the other room and people could see through my side window. I just couldn't get any peace and I couldn't get any privacy. And needless to say, I needed a holiday.